Yes, we are. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kamsi Chima, and today I am going to be reviewing this amazing book. Okay, this amazing book, Trevor Noah, Born a Crime: Stories from a South African Childhood. So some parents fear that children will read and lose focus. Some parents fear that their children will read and lose focus of everything else, like their studies and everything. But reading can help promote a lot of these things. For example, if you read a lot, studying might not be much of a problem, similar to what happens to me. Also, reading is a good way to calm down, relax, think, reflect on what happens in your life. And have a lot of more most books have a lot of moral in them. So basically that means that if you a child is properly guided through reading, it means that that reading will have many benefits for them. I want to share now how I read on the go. I'm able to excel well in my schoolwork and I still find time to read a lot. So times I read, sometimes when I wake up, sometimes on the way to school, on the long drive to school, on the long drive home, in between breaks in school, and ti- times like that. Anytime I'm just idle and I'd rather not be idle, I just pick a book and read. So, without further ado, let's reading, reviewing its Trevor Noah, Born a Cry. So, this book shares many stories from the life of the childhood life of the comedian Trevor Noah. So, he begins talking about how his life was during the apartheid. This was a period of racism because of the racist beliefs Ad- of Adolf Hitler. But let's not let's not delve too much into history all of a sudden. So he talks first here about how his mom guided him a lot through religion. So this can let us know that his mom was a religious mom. So he talks about how his mom took him to three different churches every day. It says here that Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays she will go to church because she's religious. I don't there's nothing wrong with this. It's great that you should go to church a lot. You should go to church a lot. She is a religious mom and she's passing down her intense religion to her son. She talks about how she enjoys the variety of what the three different can offer to her. One offers intensive praise, one ver- offers great passion, and the other one just offers deep analysis of the scriptures. So I love saying this. Variety is something that is very important in life. And a funny way that my mom tried to get me to do this was drinking smoothies at home when I was younger. She would make a smoothie. And when I asked her why I can't just eat an apple or an orange, she says because the variety is important. And through the time and then throughout my life I have come to see how important variety really is. So then it talks about how their car would not their car would not start when they wanted to go to church, but because his mom was very resilient about and very head on, and what's the word I should use, very very, I don't know what the word I don't know the word to use. Just she didn't want to miss the church. So even when the car did not start, she says that they should go and catch the mini buses. And then she was stubborn. She would not give in. She needed to go to church, and that is the symbol of resilience. Resilience is simply not giving up on something just because it's difficult. Resilience is something that is very important in life, because challenges are always going to come. There will never be a day you will not face hardships in life, but you must be resilient about it. So then they talk about how after they had caught the minibuses to church, they still caught those minibuses eventually. They caught the minibuses to church, and on their way home, they he talks about racism. They talk about how racism has affected them, and how there were still people fighting against racism. That's fighting for a cause. Because they say if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So then, sorry. So then they talk about how they took a car. Someone offered them a ride, but then their mom got into an argument with the person, and the man would not let them out. Then she thought, then then they have to drop out of the car when it slows down to see the traffic light, and then they run, they run from the, they run very quickly away from the man. And then even in the midst of all this, Tre- Trevor tells his mom that, I know how much you love Jesus, but please can you tell him to meet us at our house next time, because today wasn't really fun. And they laugh about everything that has happened today. Blee covered in blood and dirt i- at midnight in front of a fuel station. This this is called making light of everything. My mom always tells me I should, but when I read this, I feel this a little much. So then they talk about he how his parents committed a crime that was imposed only because of racism. His parents were never really married, but they fell in love, and they had a child because, well, they were in love, and they saw good virtues in one another. And they did not want to let the stupid law that says that races cannot mix. They did not want it to stop them, because racism, there's no there as the Premier League says, there is no room for racism. Because I don't after reading this book, I have seen the true heat of how horrible racism can be. And I believe that you shouldn't judge anyone based on their skin color and things like that. You should judge them based on the fact that both of you are that every two people are human. We are bonded together by the fact that we are humans. So they talk about how she didn't let this this rule stop her. Then he talks a little more how about how it's about how racism ruled their life, but she didn't let racism take over her. She learned when she lived in a black zone, whenever she wanted to go into a zone that only white people were allowed, she learned how to dress up in maid's overalls so that she would look like a maid to a white person's maid and not be driven out of a place. Whenever her whenever her mother whenever his mother was taking him out on the walk, she would go with a white woman. She would go out with a white friend of hers and pretend that he was her child, so the policemen would not arrest her for racial mixing, which is having sex with someone who is not in your race, like a white person having sex with a black person. Is It wasn't allowed because of racism. Then they lived in a secret. His mom lived in a flat in a white area because, well, she was a daredevil. She did not want to let all these rules take over her lives, because the places that were designated for blacks were not very hygienic, let's just say. So then they talk about how she's never as I say, she's never letting all these racism rules get to her, because she strongly believed that racism shouldn't be accepted in the society. Then he talks about when he went to school. He ran very fast, so he would always get to the talk shop first and buy things first. So then one day a boy walked up to him and said, "Look, I have 20 rand. Can you buy me some coke and some biscuits?" And then the people behind him were angry because that was basically cutting the line in their opinion. So gradually people started walking up to him and telling him, "Look, I have this much money. Can you buy me this and I'll pay you this much extra?" And then just like that, Trevor took advantage of this and built an empire out of it. Soon enough, he he had so many people asking him to buy things for them that they would that he wouldn't that he had to start turning people down. He would only take 5 orders every day and only the highest bidders. So just like that, Trevor was making money. Making money at a young age is a good thing because it means you don't always have to rely on your parents to buy you things. Making money at a young age is a great thing, because not only does it mean you don't have to rely on your parents to buy you things, but it also means that you can set yourself up for the future in a very good way. So then he talks here about how he never belonged to a group. He had friends, but he never belonged to a group of people. People were always in groups of friends those days. There were the guys who talked about computers, there were the guys that talk about gaming, there were the township boys, there were those who just loved to go out shopping, but he never belonged to a group. But using his talk shop business, because of his talk shop business, he was able to socialize a lot with a lot of people, and this allowed him to make many friends. So he could go in between groups. He could talk computers with the nerds. He could talk games with the gamers. He could talk. He could go shopping with everyone. He could talk. He could basically be anything. This is something that really hit me when I was reading this book. Something that Trevor said. I did not belong to any group, but at the same time, I was not an outcast. This means that he could talk to anyone. He was fine. He was comfortable in his own skin. He was fine wherever he was. Yet he wasn't an outcast amongst his peers. So that's something great. You shouldn't try to fit in. But at the same time, things are easy when you're not an outcast amongst everyone else. So then he talks about how after his tuck shop business, by the time he was in middle school, he was a freshman. Not he had added to that his tuck shop business. Now he also did pirated CDs, which technically was a crime, but not in his opinion. So in his here's a short story from here. In his school, there were two boys who did pirated stuff. One of them was named Bolo. He worked on pirated PlayStation games. You would give him your PlayStation and pay him some money, and then he will return it with a chip that will enable you to play pirated games. Then he'll sell you the pirated games. Then his friend Andrew was, and he had a friend named Andrew that would sell pirated music CDs. So then, after doing his talk shop errands, Trevor overheard them talking about how their sales were low and how some people did not return money. So then he cut in and told them that if they gave him some of their merchandise, he would sell it for them, but they would have to pay him some money at a point. This was him once again using his talents and exploiting them to earn money. This is a great thing to do. You shouldn't, you should use your talents to earn yourselves money and to impact people. So first he uses his incredible speed to help people get food, and he gets rewarded for it because people paid extra money. And now he's asking someone to give him their merchandise to sell, and then in return he gets paid for it. Well done, Trevor. So after that, one of them went out of the business, and then he worked for the other one until for a few years, and then the other one had to had to leave as well. He told he told Trevor that you have been a very loyal friend and partner, and with that he gave Trevor a CD writer. A CD writer is a device that can copy CDs. So this was something great. And after that, Trevor was able to take the business from here. And in fact, Trevor was even doing a better job than the people he was working for. He already had many connections thanks to his talk shop job. All he needed to do now was to tap into those connections and exploit them. So now I'm sure everyone here has heard of the famous saying, give a man a fish and he eat for one day. Teach a man to fish and he'll eat for the rest of his life. Something that Trevor says here is that there's a part of the analogy missing. And after his experience, he says that you should that teach a man to fish and he will eat for the rest of his life. And it would be great if you gave him a fishing rod, like what happened with the CD writer. The CD writer really helped Trevor. So some people would say that that was a giveaway, but Trevor wouldn't have been able to do that and become more successful without his talent. Still, the CD writer was a wonderful thing to get from his friend, and all because he had that sales skill. Being able to sell your product, no matter what it is one of the best skills that you can have in the 21st century. So next we see that Trevor's father had that Trevor's mother remarries because, as you know, his real father was never married to his mother. So his mother marries a nice Swiss man. She talks about how he- they talk about how this man maltreated her, and she stood her ground once again as usual. Trevor's mother in her 40s still standing her ground and never letting anyone get the better of her. When the man took over the house, Trevor's mother lived at the back lived just at the back of the house. She would never give way to anything. So now we see a point where Trevor is in his house. Now Trevor was racially mixed, and there were two types of people in his neighborhood that hated him. Number one were the people who hated him because he acted too much like a black person when his skin complexion made it look as if he was white. He spoke the native South African languages, and people criticized him because of this. Why do you speak this language? You are almost white and you're throwing it away. Look at your skin complexion. He after being bullied a lot, he developed thick skin, and he didn't let people get to him. But this particular affair was the worst, the very worst. So Trevor Trevor was going to the mulberry tree to pick mulberries, as people normally do. Then a group of white kids showed up and said, "Hey, can I see what you have in your basket?" Then in his mind, he thought, "Oh, yeah, I finally made a friend." And he showed them. Then they took the grapes and threw them at him. He, most of them were not ripe and they really stung. But he didn't let it get to he did not let them, he didn't let it get to him. That is his thick skin, very well developed. So, but then the people continue to maltreat him. Then he goes home almost in tears and tells his mom. Then his mom said sorry to him and helped him clean up, but his dad didn't find it funny. His dad drove to the people's house, to the children's house, and gave them the beating of their life. And at first, Trevor had been thinking, "Oh, my father is getting revenge for me. Ah, revenge is sweet." But then, after he saw what his father was doing to the children, his thoughts went from revenge is sweet to, "Oh Lord, what have I done?" So then then his father tells the children to apologize. And then when they apologize, he saw the fear in their eyes and something clicked in his mind. This boy was a child. He was a child. This boy was crying. He had been crying. So what his father had done to this boy was almost as bad as what this boy had done to him. And he hadn't tried to do anything about it. Trevor now saw what he had done wrong. So now we see that Trevor has moved out into a nice small neighborhood called Alex, and he was still doing his primary job, and he had added something to that. Now, not only did he do pirated CDs, but he DJ'd for parties. So his regular life went like this. He would hustle his CDs all through the day, especially to people who drove minibuses because they needed quality music to entertain the people they were driving, and they were and business was booming for Trevor. Then through the night he DJ'd parties for money. Soon enough, his middleman Bongani told him that he he needs to up his game at what he was doing. He said that he needed to add a dancing crew to his parties, and they asked one of their friends, a nice fresh boy, to go and do dancing for them. This was once again Trevor's social connections being a this was once again Trevor taking advantage of his social connections. And allow me to state this: no man can live as an island because you cannot do it alone. No, nobody can live life alone because, well, social connections are very crucial and can help you. That is something I've learned after reading about how Trevor has done this, done that, done this, done that. Trevor didn't After Trevor graduated from the university, he couldn't get a job. So he just kept on doing his thing, selling DJing parties and selling CDs, and you get the point. Don't you? So then they talk about how the world doesn't love you. They talk here about how the world doesn't love you and the importance of family. This is something that my mom I didn't even need to read this book to know the importance of family. My mom has pounded it on me all my life, but truly, she has helped me to become a better person. She's taught me about how family comes first in everything. So Trevor's stepfather worked in the garage, and one day Trevor decided to borrow a car from his office, from the garage. But then Trevor was arrested for driving without a license, or was it? One second, please. And here. So he, so Trevor was arrested and he was taken to jail for some weeks. He was sent to jail to await trial for some weeks. After that, he was thinking about how he was going to how he had devised a plan on how his mom would not know about anything that had happened. He thought everything through about how he would not tell her. He would ask someone else, his cousin, to get a bailout for him, and then he would go without his mom knowing anything. But when he finally got home, his mom was there waiting for him. His mom had always been there. She asked him, "Who was it that you think paid your bill?" It was him. It was his mom. Truly, his mom loved him. And she said to him, "Do you think that I did not know about anything that had happened? The world doesn't love you, Trevor. Know that. When I beat you, it is because I love you. When the police beat you, it is because they want you dead." And that is something that truly stuck with me. The world doesn't love you. This was in the apartheid period, and Trevor was half black, half white, but mostly black. So, because black people were very badly maltreated in his time, she said that She told him that the police would beat you only because they want you dead, because they hate your race. But Trevor's mother would beat him because he loves him and wants to correct him. This is love. This is truly love. Love. Unconditional love is something you can never overemphasize. And now they talk to the final part of this book, where Trevor wakes up from his bed one day to a call from his younger brother. His brother says, "Are you busy, Trevor?" He says, "No. Why would you ask?" And then he said, "Mom has been shot." Trevor gasped in fear. He ran downstairs quickly and told him and met his cousin, saying and told him, "Dude, my mom has been shot." And then the two of them ran to the car, drove to the hospital where his mom was. His brother was there, trying to look calm. But then as soon as he saw Trevor, he broke into tears and ran. Trevor asked what had happened, and he said it was our stepfather, Andrew's father. Trevor's stepfather had shot their mom. Trevor's stepfather was a drunkard, and he had maltreated Trevor's mother many times. But now he was really over the top and angry. So he had shot Trevor's mother. So then Trevor's mother comes out. She's bleeding, but she's still alive. Then Trevor goes crying to her and says, Go and help your brother." Then he looks back and sees his stepfather. And his stepfather says to him, "You have ruined my life. Now I am going to kill all of you." Then Andrew quickly runs, and Isaac, the youngest son, 9 years old at the time, says, "Please, Dad, just drop the gun. You're just drunk. You're just drunk." Then says, "Isaac, go and meet your brother." Then Trevor's mother said that they should run. She pushed them, but then she was shot on her leg, unable to escape. Then Trevor's stepfather comes over about to kill her, and then his gun misfired 4 times in a row. This was by the grace of God. Trevor's mother believed in God for everything that she did, and this was one of them. But then finally she was shot on her head. The bullet came out of her cheek. Then quickly Trevor took her and ran to the car. They drove to the nearest hospital, and then when they met the clerk there, she said, "We cannot treat this woman there. She does not have a health insurance." She now said, Trevor now said, "I'm confused. My mom has a health insurance, but his mother had actually cancelled her health insurance." So then the woman said, "We need a form of payment." Then Trevor brings out his credit card and says, "Woman, I am your form of payment." And then he pays. She goes on and on to him about how expensive it's going to be, but then he doesn't care. He says, "Take all my money if you want to, just save my mom." Now, this is love from Trevor. Trevor loves his mom a lot, and he did not want her to die. Then the doctor comes out some days later, and tells Trevor, "I didn't, your mother is stable, she'll be fine." Then he says that, "I do not want to use this word, I don't often want to use this word, but what has happened today can only be described as a miracle. When the bullet entered, it missed the spinal cord by a hair. It missed the medulla oblongata, went below the skull without touching any single nerve or artery, and it was on target for her eye socket And at the speed the bullet was going, it would have knocked the eye socket out. But at the last moment, the bullet lost power and ricocheted out of the cheekbone without leaving any bullet fragments in her body. This was the grace of God helping Trevor's mother. This is what having faith is. Later on, is talking to his mom and he says, I still can't believe that you didn't have a health insurance, mom. And then Trevor's mom answers, I do have a health insurance. Jesus is my health insurance. Then she now says, with the love of God on my side, who can be against me? And then Trevor thoroughly agrees with his mother. This is faith. This Trevor Noah, born a crime, is a very, 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 very inspirational, informational book. It's something that I think everyone should read. Well, that's all for today. Thank you. Thank you. And don't forget to click the like button, click the subscribe button, and share my videos. Bye for now.